They told you that happiness was the goal, that everything you do, every sacrifice, every long night and every decision was supposed to lead you there, to that radiant place where the heart no longer aches, where the mind stops running, where everything feels light and perfect. But here you are, doing everything right, chasing every rule of success, repeating every affirmation, and somehow you're still restless. You scroll through the smiles of strangers, their filtered vacations, their curated joy, and you think, why not me? Why am I not as happy as I'm supposed to be? The world has sold you a promise it cannot keep. Because happiness, real, lasting happiness, isn't a destination. It's a moving target, a mirage in the desert of your desires. The more you run toward it, the farther it moves away. And that's the lie. The dangerous, seductive lie that happiness is something you can possess, something you can earn, something that stays once you've found it. You see, humans were never designed for permanent happiness. Evolution didn't build us to be blissful. It built us to survive, to sense danger, to adapt. The moment you reach something that feels good, your brain resets the bar. You crave more, you want more, you expect more. The system rewards temporary pleasure, not peace. That's why the high fades, the novelty dies, and the joy dissolves. That's why you can love something one day and feel nothing for it the next. Happiness isn't constant, it's fleeting by design. And yet, we've built an entire civilization worshipping it as the ultimate prize. We've built industries, philosophies, and billion-dollar businesses on the idea that if you just do this, buy this, believe this, you'll finally be happy. But that's not happiness, that's addiction dressed in self-help clothing. The truth is, the pursuit of happiness is often the root of our deepest misery. Because when you make happiness the goal, you start seeing every neutral or painful moment as a failure. You start believing something is wrong with you when you're sad, anxious, or bored. But those states aren't broken, they're human. You don't fix sadness by running from it. You understand it. You listen to what it's trying to tell you. You don't fix anxiety by forcing smiles. You learn to coexist with uncertainty. The real strength isn't in constant joy, it's in emotional depth, in being able to hold pain and peace in the same breath, in knowing that the dark moments are not detours away from life, but essential parts of it. Still, the world around you doesn't want you to think that way. It wants you to keep chasing, because a chasing mind is a consuming mind. A restless soul buys more, scrolls more, works more. If you were content, the system would collapse. So they teach you to fear stillness, to fill every silence, to medicate every sadness, to label normal human discomfort as a problem that needs solving. But what if the problem was never the sadness itself? What if the problem was believing that sadness meant something was wrong? Imagine for a moment if you stopped chasing happiness, if you stopped needing every moment to be perfect. What would happen? At first, maybe fear. Then maybe peace. Because in that surrender, you begin to see the quiet truth. Happiness was never supposed to be the goal. Meaning was. Growth was. Presence was. Happiness is a side effect, not the destination. It's what happens when you stop needing everything to feel good all the time. When you allow life to hurt you and heal you in equal measure. When you stop treating discomfort as a sign of failure and start treating it as the teacher it has always been. There is a strange kind of freedom in giving up the chase. It's like walking off a treadmill you've been running on your entire life, realizing it was never going anywhere. The moment you stop sprinting toward happiness, you start walking with life. You start noticing things you missed. The texture of the air, the rhythm of your breath, the quiet pulse behind your ribs that has been there all along. You stop asking, "Am I happy?" and start asking, "Am I alive?" And that's a question that leads somewhere real. Because to be alive is not to be happy all the time. It's to feel everything fully, even the parts that hurt. It's to laugh and cry and grieve and love, knowing each state feeds the next. Happiness isn't something to keep, it's something to experience, like a sunrise. You don't own it, you witness it, and it moves through you. But we're so afraid of its absence that we turn it into an obsession. We measure our worth by it. We ask every day, "Am I happy yet?" As if that's the only metric that matters. but the pursuit itself becomes the cage. The harder you chase it, the more it slips away, because the act of chasing confirms its absence. The paradox of happiness is that it cannot exist where it is demanded. The more you need it, the more you remind yourself you don't have it. That's why so many people feel empty even after getting everything they wanted. The dream job, the partner, the house, it all comes, and yet something still feels missing. That missing feeling isn't failure, it's reality. It's the reminder that fulfillment doesn't come from acquisition. It comes from alignment, from living in truth, not fantasy, from choosing what matters even when it doesn't feel good. The person who accepts the full range of their emotions is far closer to peace than the one who keeps trying to stay positive all the time. Because positivity, when forced, becomes another form of denial. It's painting over cracks instead of fixing the foundation. True peace begins the moment you stop fighting what is. It begins when you can look at sadness without needing it to end right away. When you can sit with emptiness without trying to fill it. When you realize that joy is not the absence of pain, but the ability to move through it gracefully. The irony is that when you stop demanding happiness, you start feeling it more often. It sneaks up on you, in moments of quiet presence, in a sunset you didn't plan to watch, in laughter that arrives uninvited. That's real happiness, spontaneous, unmanufactured, unforced. The kind that doesn't need proof to exist, the kind that doesn't fear its own end because it knows it will return. The moment you make peace with impermanence, you unlock something deeper than happiness. You unlock peace. Happiness depends on conditions. Peace exists despite them. And once you taste that, you'll never look at the chase the same way again. But peace isn't glamorous, is it? It doesn't sell. It doesn't flash across magazine covers or viral thumbnails. Peace doesn't shout. It whispers, and we've forgotten how to listen. The modern world rewards excitement, stimulation, the constant rush of novelty that keeps our dopamine circuits firing like fireworks. We scroll for it, shop for it, drink for it, work for it. We live in a state of overstimulation so constant that stillness feels like suffocation. We confuse the absence of excitement for boredom and boredom for unhappiness. But what if the very thing we're running from, the silence, the stillness, the absence of more, is the medicine? Imagine the calm that comes when you no longer need to chase another feeling, when your mood no longer dictates your worth. There's a certain power in neutrality, in being unmoved by the endless swings between joy and sorrow. It's not indifference, it's wisdom. The kind of wisdom the Stoics spoke about, the Buddha hinted at, the philosophers wrote of. The realization that life is not meant to make you happy, it's meant to make you awake. Happiness was always a temporary spark, but awareness, that's the eternal flame. Yet, we keep trying to make the spark permanent, lighting fireworks over and over, wondering why they keep fading. We treat peace like it's boring because we've grown addicted to chaos. Drama feels like proof that we're alive. Even our happiness is often built on comparison. We don't just want to be happy, we want to be happier than someone else. The entire concept of success is often just socially sanctioned comparison, the art of measuring your internal worth by someone else's external highlight reel. And it never ends, because the mind's appetite for more is infinite. You can't win a game whose rules are designed to keep moving. That's why the moment you get what you want, you immediately start asking what's next. You can't enjoy the view because you're already thinking about the next mountain. But the truth is, no mountain is high enough to silence the craving for the next one. The problem is not that life is disappointing, the problem is that we expected it to feel like a permanent high. We were promised something life never agreed to give. Somewhere along the way, someone told you that being happy was the point of being alive. But what if that's wrong? What if the point is to grow, to learn, to experience? Sometimes the things that make you happiest in the long run are the things that hurt the most in the short term. The heartbreak that opens you, the failure that humbles you, the loss that deepens your compassion. No one wants pain, but pain is the sculptor of character. Without it, joy would mean nothing. Without darkness, you can't recognize light. But when you're obsessed with happiness, you numb yourself to the lessons hidden in discomfort. You become addicted to avoidance, living life like it's a game of emotional dodgeball. You don't grow, you just distract yourself until the next hit of pleasure. The tragedy is that many people die still chasing it, never realizing they were running in circles, always moving but never arriving. They confuse motion with meaning. But meaning doesn't live in constant motion, it lives in stillness, in presence, in moments where you're not reaching for anything, just being. The happiest people are rarely the ones who talk about happiness. They're the ones who have learned to find beauty in simplicity, who can appreciate an ordinary day without needing to label it as good or bad. They've stopped grading every moment on an emotional scale. Because happiness isn't a scorecard, it's a byproduct of alignment. When your life reflects your values, when your words match your actions, when your choices are guided by integrity rather than impulse, peace follows quietly behind. But that's too subtle for a culture obsessed with shortcuts. We want 5 steps to happiness, the secret to joy, the one hack to change your life. But life doesn't bend to hacks, it bends to awareness. Awareness is uncomfortable because it demands honesty. It demands you look at your habits, your distractions, your dependencies, and ask, why am I doing this? What am I running from? And that's why true peace is so rare, because it requires courage. The courage to sit in silence without reaching for your phone. The courage to face a thought without escaping into another dopamine hit. The courage to admit that happiness has become your disguise for fear. Fear of emptiness, fear of meaninglessness, fear that if the chase ends, there will be nothing left. But what if the end of the chase isn't emptiness at all? What if it's freedom? What if the thing you've been calling happiness has been the cage all along? You see, the mind that constantly asks, "Am I happy?" is the same mind that can never be satisfied. Because the question itself creates separation. The moment you analyze happiness, you're no longer in it, you're outside of it, measuring it, judging it, and in doing so, you lose it. True happiness is not self-conscious. It's spontaneous, like laughter that bursts out of you before you even realize it. It happens when you're fully absorbed in something beyond yourself. Flow, not focus on happiness, is what breeds joy. The artist lost in painting, the runner lost in rhythm, the child lost in play. They're not thinking, "Am I happy?" They simply are. The moment you turn your gaze inward to check, it evaporates. The happiest lives are not the ones obsessed with happiness, they're the ones devoted to purpose. Because purpose gives you something happiness never can: stability. It's the anchor in the storm. It gives suffering context, turns chaos into challenge, and transforms pain into meaning. That's what Viktor Frankl meant when he said those who have a why can bear almost any how. Purpose doesn't protect you from pain, but it makes pain bearable. It gives the darkness a reason to exist. Happiness asks, "How can I feel good right now?" Purpose asks, "What am I becoming through this?" One keeps you trapped in the present moment's pleasure, the other expands you across time. And when you start living for meaning, happiness begins to appear naturally, quietly, unexpectedly, in small sacred moments that require no performance. You laugh again, but not because you forced yourself to, because you remembered what it feels like to be alive. You stop comparing yourself, not because you've mastered self-love, but because comparison simply feels irrelevant. You don't need to prove your worth when you finally realize it was never up for debate. Happiness becomes less of a goal and more of a shadow. It follows you when you move toward truth. The irony is, the moment you stop demanding to feel happy, you actually start feeling alive in a way happiness never gave you. You begin to sense a deeper rhythm under life's noise, a still pulse that doesn't vanish when things go wrong. It's the steady hum of presence, the quiet yes that whispers beneath everything. And you realize this, maybe life was never about being happy, maybe it was about being whole. And wholeness isn't about feeling good all the time, it's about embracing every part of you, even the ones that ache, even the ones you wish you could silence. Because the moment you accept your entire self, happiness no longer feels like something to chase. It feels like something that's always been here, waiting for you to stop running long enough to notice it. There's a man standing at a train platform just before dawn. The world is still half asleep, the air carrying that fragile silence only mornings know. His coffee has gone cold, but he hasn't noticed. He's been staring at the tracks, not because he's waiting for a train, but because he's waiting for something inside him to move. A promotion, a new relationship, another milestone. He's had them all, and yet the same question echoes in him. Why does everything that should make me happy feel hollow? The truth is, he's been chasing a ghost, a version of happiness promised to him since childhood, the kind that's always around the next corner. And in that chase, he's forgotten what standing still feels like. He's forgotten that silence can be sacred. Happiness was supposed to fill him, but all it's done is keep him busy. You can see it in his eyes, the exhaustion of someone who has everything but peace. He takes a breath, closes his eyes, and for a split second, he doesn't reach for his phone, doesn't plan the next thing, doesn't compare his life to anyone else's. He just listens. The hum of electricity, the distant sound of tires on wet pavement, his own heartbeat echoing softly in his chest. It's in that moment that he realizes something. Maybe happiness isn't something you find, but something that finds you when you stop trying so hard to capture it. It arrives when you're still enough to receive it. Most of us never give life that chance. We run so fast, chasing an emotion, that we trample over the very moments where it quietly blooms. We think life will reward us for our effort, but sometimes life rewards us for our surrender. There's a woman sitting in her car at midnight. The world outside is asleep, the city lights reflected on her windshield like scattered stars. She's just ended another relationship, one that looked perfect on paper but felt empty inside. For years she believed happiness meant being loved, being chosen, being seen. But somewhere between the first good morning text and the last silence, she learned that being loved isn't the same as being at peace. As tears trace lines down her face, she catches her reflection in the rearview mirror. Not broken, not lost, just raw, real, alive. And for the first time, she doesn't rush to fix the sadness. She doesn't scroll for distractions or search for meaning in the pain. She just lets herself feel. And in that quiet surrender, something shifts. The pain doesn't vanish, but it transforms. It becomes a kind of truth, an awakening that happiness built on avoidance was never real happiness at all. These are the moments we overlook because they don't fit the narrative. The moments where the mask cracks and what's left is just us. Unfiltered, unimpressive, honest. And in that honesty, life finally begins. There's a strange kind of beauty in being stripped of illusion, in standing face to face with emptiness and realizing it's not trying to hurt you, it's trying to teach you. The space you call unhappiness might just be the silence where your next truth is being born. But we don't listen long enough to hear it. We fill the void before it can speak. We run from the ache before it can heal us. And in doing so, we rob ourselves of depth. Because the deeper you go into yourself, the more peace you uncover, not by addition, but by subtraction. When you stop filling the silence, when you stop patching every void, life begins to whisper. It tells you that happiness isn't a reward for living right, it's the residue of living truthfully. It tells you that peace and sadness can coexist, that fulfillment doesn't require euphoria. There's another story, an old monk sitting by a river, watching the current move. A young traveler asks him, "How do I find happiness?" The monk smiles and says, "You stop looking for it." The traveler frowns, thinking the monk is joking, but he isn't. Because the moment you stop searching, you start seeing. You start noticing that the sunlight doesn't ask for your attention, it just is. The wind doesn't care if you're happy, it moves anyway. The river doesn't demand that you love it, it flows endlessly, freely. Life doesn't owe you happiness, but it offers you beauty, constantly, in ways so simple they're almost invisible. The problem is not that happiness is rare, it's that our attention is elsewhere. We've trained our minds to measure joy in grand gestures, in milestones, in applause. But joy was never loud, it was always quiet. It was in the taste of morning coffee before the mind started racing. in the sound of rain against glass when you finally stopped pretending to be okay, in the moment you forgave yourself for being human. The chase blinds us to these moments because we think happiness must look a certain way, bright, big, obvious. But often it's subtle, patient, gentle, and it waits for you to slow down enough to see it. That man at the train platform eventually boards, not to go anywhere, but just to move, to feel something different. He sits by the window and watches the city fade behind him, and for the first time, he doesn't plan what's next. He doesn't imagine a future where everything makes sense. He just lets the motion carry him. The world outside blurs into colors, gray, gold, rust, and in that blur, he feels it again. That quiet hum of being alive. Not happy, not sad, just alive. And somehow that feels like enough. Maybe that's the real lesson. Life isn't a problem to solve or a mountain to conquer. It's a rhythm to dance with, a tide to ride. The pursuit of happiness has made us rigid. The acceptance of life makes us fluid. When you flow with it instead of against it, you find something even better than happiness. You find ease. Ease in your own skin, ease in your own path, ease in the uncertainty that used to scare you. Because the truth is, you were never supposed to feel good all the time. You were supposed to feel everything, to taste the full spectrum of existence. That's where depth is born. That's where empathy grows. That's where peace hides, in the cracks of imperfection. Happiness is not the prize at the end of the road, it's the dust that rises from your feet when you walk it honestly. There comes a moment, quiet and unannounced, when you stop running. It doesn't feel like a grand revelation or a victory parade. It feels like an exhale you didn't know you'd been holding for years. You're sitting somewhere ordinary, maybe on a park bench, maybe on the floor of your living room, maybe just lying awake in the soft blue light before dawn. And suddenly, the constant noise inside you softens. The questions, the measuring, the reaching, they lose their urgency. For the first time in a long time, you're not trying to get anywhere. You're simply here. The air feels different, almost thicker, like time has slowed enough for you to notice how alive everything is. The trees outside move in slow conversation with the wind, the sunlight falls through the curtains and paints quiet patterns on your skin, and for a fleeting second, you feel something deeper than happiness. You feel harmony. It's subtle, almost shy, but it's real. It's the realization that maybe nothing was ever missing. Maybe life didn't need to be fixed or conquered. Maybe all it ever asked of you was to witness it, to see it, to feel it, to live it. There's a kind of grace that comes when you stop fighting the tides and start floating with them. You begin to see that even the storms had their place, that even the heartbreaks were secret teachers dressed as pain. The moments that once shattered you were the same ones that built your depth, that sculpted the shape of your compassion. You start to forgive the past, not because it was fair, but because you're finally ready to be free from it. You understand now that the pursuit of happiness was never wrong, it was just misplaced. You were never supposed to chase happiness, you were supposed to create space for it. And that space was never out there, it was always within. The joy you've been searching for doesn't live in some future version of yourself, it lives in your ability to be present with what is. To drink your coffee slowly, to listen when someone speaks, to breathe fully without rushing to the next thought, to walk through the world as if every moment is worth noticing, because it is. Happiness isn't hiding, it's waiting patiently behind your expectations. When you drop them, it appears everywhere, in the laughter of strangers, in the smell of rain on warm pavement, in the way your chest expands when you remember you're alive. And suddenly, the little things you used to overlook start to feel sacred. The sunlight becomes a conversation, the silence becomes music, the ordinary becomes enough. You realize that life doesn't owe you constant joy, it offers you constant wonder, and that's far more beautiful. There's a peace that comes with not needing every day to be perfect, with not demanding that every chapter makes sense. You begin to see life as a story you're living, not editing. Every moment, even the hard ones, are brushstrokes on a larger canvas you can't yet see. And maybe that's okay. Maybe happiness was never meant to be permanent, because impermanence is what makes life so vivid. If joy stayed forever, we'd forget its value. If peace never wavered, we'd stop learning to return to it. Maybe the real gift isn't in keeping happiness, but in knowing where to find it again and again, no matter what happens. The man from the train platform might still wake up some mornings feeling lost, but now he doesn't panic. He knows that emptiness isn't the enemy, it's the pause between songs. The woman in the car might still cry sometimes, but she no longer sees tears as weakness. She knows that softness is strength, that feeling deeply is the proof she's still open, still human, still capable of love. And maybe you're realizing it too, that you don't need to chase what life is already trying to give you. That you can stop asking, "Am I happy?" and start asking, "Am I here?" Because here, in this breath, in this exact moment, you are enough. You've always been enough. The world isn't waiting for a happier version of you, it's waiting for the real one. The one who can laugh without needing a reason, who can cry without shame, who can look at a sunset and not need to photograph it to prove it happened. The one who knows that being alive, with all its contradictions, is already the miracle. So you take another breath, slower this time. The day stretches open like a promise. The noise of life hums in the distance, but it no longer feels heavy. It feels like music. You don't need to run anymore. You don't need to chase. You don't need to fix what was never broken. Because somewhere along the way, you've discovered something richer than happiness. You found peace, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that doesn't fade, the kind that sits quietly in your chest and says, "You're home." And maybe that's all happiness ever was. Not the pursuit, not the prize, but the pause. The moment you stop running long enough to feel the rhythm of your own existence and realize it was never missing. It was always here,